The end, going biblical, look, flow like a river. It's something like loyalty in my veins, payback in every breath, plus revenge in my heart, the truth in every word. Bring light into the dark, and I ain't never lukewarm. Shit, I blaze and niggas see. Got plans just gotta watch who I'm beating. Now I've been walking with them angels, so I guess I got this pistol for no reason. Niggas barely breathing, criticizing all my achievements. Won't make me weak. Nah, it won't make me slack off. These niggas baby fat, so I better bear with it. So back off. I be ripping shit like sackcloth. Dumb dogs all barked out. Behind me say I come for. No room for emotion, so I pour my heart out. This road hard, but I intend to stay. And if it ain't U.P.K, then they in the way. My niggas righteous, they real, they down to something. Flow so deep, they drown a motherfucker. He say he in the truth, oh yeah? Well, it's the home. And I don't hate them brothers, I'm just too loyal to my own. Plus what they believe, hard for me to follow. No rank me, no head. And I ain't leaving this body to live and sleep in hollow. So when they ask I'm U.P.K, we tell them absolutely. And I ain't trimming my ways for nothing. Gotta execute me. Cause I can never die with my tail tucked between my legs. Shit I be thinking. Watching my daughters tucked in their bed. They so smart. And Alana, she's so beautiful. But they ain't like other babies. And they daddy far from usual. Now I'm missing cause I'm about my father's business. It ain't about this shit I used to do in that 98 daddy. 10 level seats. See, without wisdom, this world make me weak. I found out that the truth was bitter. The lies are sweet. Tried everything. I guess me and Yohanna had to meet. Now I'm gonna make the blind see. And I make the dead speak. And teach both my little girls the day that they lie with a man. They better bring your bloody bed sheets. Hey, I'll smash the time. This Glock match my handpiece. And I... Let me get started. Just give me a second. So, like, you make sure you're checking that camera too once we do get started. All right. To make sure everything is to wall. So we're gonna go to Hosea 4:6 first. We're gonna pick up where I left off last time whenever we was doing the spiritual warfare, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna do a quick breakdown on Lucifer, and then we'll go into the Job and all of that, just so you got an idea of where I'm going with everything. If you want to chime in, or if officer, if you want to chime in, y'all feel free to do so, especially about the whole warfare, Christianity teaching is a lie. Okay. All right, Trooper, you can go ahead and go live on the camera. Are we live already? I believe so. Okay. We live? Okay. I'm Officer Yashimar with the I.S.U.P.K. We started off at 125th Northwest Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yahanna. If you don't have a head, you don't have direction. Today we're going to pick up where we left off with spiritual warfare, the scripture breakdown class. Scripture breakdown class will be every Friday at 7 p.m. The Sabbath class will follow up shortly after that. I believe it's Officer Manatazak. Make sure you check that out. We're going to pick up right where we left off. If you got any questions, make sure you type them in. We're going to do our best to make sure we get them answered. So we're talking about warfare. in spiritual warfare at that. And understanding and knowing that when you are at war, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you've got to identify your enemy. You've got to identify who your enemy is when you're at war. The scriptures say, beware of the wiles of the devil. If you're not familiar with your enemy and the tactics that your enemy is going to use against you, you're not going to be able to effectively wage war. Now, it's one thing to deal with the symptoms of a problem versus the root cause of the symptoms. If you only deal with the symptoms, they'll always come back. So we've got to deal with the real problem amongst blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians. Trooper, read what you got.
The book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
The blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians are destroyed for what?
For lack of knowledge.
Make sure you read loud and strong. The blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Most of us don't even know that we're in the middle of a war. Most of us don't even know who our enemy is in this war. Most of us are not familiar with the tactics, with the psychological, with the emotional, with the spiritual warfare that's waged against us. We still running around here asleep, accepting Christianity as the truth. So read some more on that, Trooper.
Because thou hast rejected knowledge.
Because you blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians have rejected knowledge. Read on.
I will also reject thee.
This is the Most High speaking. You've got to understand that part of this warfare that's been waged against us is to make sure you remain ignorant. Make sure you don't know who you are. The name of the game has been divide and conquer. Well, now I'm going to have men hating, older men hating younger men, dark-skinned men hating light-skinned men hating women. And not only that, I'm going to have the different tribes broken off, and I'm going to have them hate each other. Because we have rejected knowledge, we got to keep in mind, if you're going to cut someone off from coming back to the throne or from ascending to their rightful place and position on the throne, you've got to cut them off effectively from having any knowledge that they're royalty in the first place. Because we have rejected the knowledge of who we are, the Most High has rejected us. Is it fitting for royalty to eat the same things as servants and slaves? Is it fitting for royalty to dress the same way as everyone else? Is it fitting for royalty to go about their daily business the same way that everyone else does? Absolutely not. Read on.
That thou shalt be no priest to me.
So we're not going to be no priest and some more on that? Read on.
Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forgive thy children.
And that's what's going on right now today. We've forgotten the law of the Most High God, and now our children out here being forgotten, killed, and murdered with honey buns in their hand. Effectively, what we're going to find out when it comes to spiritual warfare, first and foremost, we've got to undo some of the psychological and spiritual damage that's already been done to blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians. Now, in the Christian church, they've given you a concept of Lucifer and Satan and of the devil. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody can chime in. They say that there was a great war up in heaven, and Lucifer wanted to exalt his throne above the throne of the Most High God. And he had a third of the angels, and there was a great war in heaven, and he was really strong and mighty. The Most High didn't entice Lucifer and knock him out. He Mayweathered him for 12 rounds, got the split decision, kicked him out of heaven. When Lucifer and his angels got cast out of heaven, they went down into the earth, and now they're down on the earth, seeking whom they may destroy. And the real enemy is Lucifer and Satan and the devil. You don't understand the nature of the Most High in Christ, and you don't understand the nature of the Most High and his relationship with who you effectively call Satan or Lucifer. You don't understand that. You don't even know who Lucifer is. Go to Isaiah the 14th chapter. We're going to get straight into it. If you got any questions, make sure you type it in. You see, we're going to put the tools in your hand, the same tools that was put in our hands, so that you can effectively wage war. Here's the beautiful thing about it. So-called black men, Latino men, and Native Indian men, whenever you wage in war, you've got to identify who your enemy is. You got to run recon, and then you got to come up with a plan about how you're going to fight against this enemy. Well, the wonderful thing in our situation is that the Most High God has given us the instruction, the blueprint on how to identify who our enemy is, how to identify who an ally is, and how to effectively wage war against your enemy. It's all found in these scriptures. Just starting Isaiah 14, the first chapter. Salaki, excuse me. The 14th chapter, the first verse.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land.
We already heard this those of us in the school, we know what this is. He's going to yet choose Israel, and he's going to set us in our own land, because contrary to popular belief, we're not in our own land right now. Read on.
And the strangers shall be joined with them.
The strangers is going to be the other nations, the authentic Africans, the Chinese, the Japanese, Japhetic people, Eskimos, Polynesians. Read on.
And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob.
This includes the so-called white man. Read on.
Verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place.
So these people have a place in the kingdom of heaven. Read on.
And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids.
We're going to possess them. Anything that we possess means we own it. They're going to be our servants and our handmaids. Read on.
And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were.
That's my favorite part. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were. We already know that the Black, Latino, and Native Indian man was once captive to the so-called white man. We're going to take him captive. Read on.
And they shall rule over their oppressors.
We're going to rule over the people oppressing us today. Read on.
Verse 3, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve.
So all of the terrible things we're going through right now, the Most High is going to give us rest from those things. Read verse 4.
Verse 4, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon.
Against who?
The king of Babylon.
You got to keep up with that. You got to keep that in your mind. We're going to take up a proverb against the king of Babylon. America is Babylon, Egypt, Sodom and Gomorrah. It's all of those wrapped up in one. Read on.
And say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased.
So we're going to say, how your reign, your terrible reign ended. Read on.
Verse 5, the Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers.
That means they are no longer in a position to rule. They've been broken. Read on.
Verse 6, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth.
So the so-called white man is going in chains. He's the one who has persecuted the people with a continual stroke and with a perpetual wrath, and who didn't continue the brotherly covenant. The so-called white man is going in chains, and no one's going to hinder this judgment that's going to be put on him. Read on. Now, if you want world peace, so-called white man has to go in chains. Read verse 7.
Verse 7, the whole earth is at rest.
You got to understand something, man. The so-called white man is a cancer and a virus on the earth. Everywhere he goes, he does nothing but destroy, rape, rob, murder, steal, and destroy. That's all he does, everywhere that he goes. He's destroyed so much that now the environment is affected by it. I just found out, about a week and a half ago, that the coral reefs are now receding and going away. How many animals have gone extinct under his rulership? There's a hole in the ozone layer. Every few months, it's an oil spill killing I don't know how many animals out there in the ocean. Everywhere the so-called white man goes, he's been nothing but a virus and a cancer on the earth. If you want the earth to be at peace, then what you want is a so-called white man to go in chains. That's what you desire if you truly want the world to be at peace. Verse 7, read it again.
The whole earth is at rest.
It says the whole earth is at rest once the king of Babylon is persecuted and none hindered. Read on.
And is quiet. They break forth into singing.
Read on.
Verse 8. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feather is come up against us.
So the fir trees, that's like a Christmas tree. They rejoice, saying, no feather has come up against us. A feather is an accident, someone who cuts down trees. We all know that America pushes Christmas all across. The Europeans push this Christmas nonsense all across this globe, man. And they do nothing but cut down wood and burn it up for dumb reasons. Read on.
Verse 9. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming.
Read on.
It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth.
So all these people, all these countries, and all these nations that they went in and killed their kings, it stirreth up the dead for them. Read on.
It hath raised up from their thrones all the kingdoms of the nations.
Read on.
Verse 10. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we?
So these are the nations that are being persecuted, the blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, and all the rest of these other nations, because the so-called white man has to keep perpetual war going. We've got to understand that. Everywhere he goes on the globe, he has to keep war going. So they're saying, are you becoming as weak as us now? Read on.
Art thou become like unto us?
Read.
Verse 11. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave.
The pomp, the pride, because they say America is the greatest country on the earth. That's what they profess in the world. America is the greatest. We have the best health care and all this stuff. America could never be defeated. America could never lose a war. That's what they spread throughout all the world. That pomp, that pride is going to be brought down low. It's going to be brought down to the grave. Read on.
And the noise of thy vials, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee.
Read on.
Verse 12.
So that's talking about this so-called white man. He's going to get down in the dirt. He's going into slavery. Read verse 12.
Okay. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer?
There it is right there. That's what we was trying to get to. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Read the rest of the verse.
Son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?
Now we gotta use Christians' favorite word real quick. Their favorite word is context. When we read up there in verse 4, it says, thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. When we get down to verse 12, it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? First of all, your concept of heaven, let's deal with that. Give me Lamentations 2:1. Hold that spot. We're going to come back to that. We're going to get Lamentations 2:1 real quick. Your concept of a Lucifer, of heaven, and of hell that has been taught to you by the Christian church is complete and utter nonsense. Christianity does not match up with the Bible. They contradict. We're going to go into these scriptures and we're going to find out who and what Lucifer really is. We're going to find out about the relationship between the Most High and what you call Satan. We're going to find out the relationship between the Most High and these angels on the left-hand side. Lamentations 2:1. Just let me know when you got truth. You got it? Go ahead, read that. Now, we've got to get more understanding on what heaven is. Read what you got.
The book of Lamentations, chapter 2, verse 1. How hath the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger?
The daughter of Zion, that's talking about the nation of Israel. Read on.
And cast down from heaven.
Cast down from where?
Cast down from heaven.
So the nation of Israel was cast down from where?
Cast down from heaven.
Heaven is rulership on the earth. That's what heaven is. You think to see, this is also a part of that warfare. Psychologically, they got you so warped and twisted that you think in order for you to have real peace and for you to have anything, you got to die and go float around in the sky to get it. The scriptures say that the kingdom of heaven is in you. Have been cast out of what?
Cast down from heaven.
They were cast down from heaven. Now you know that the nation of Israel was never up there in the highest of heavens with the Most High God. We will be a nation of kings and priests, and we will reign on the earth. Read on.
Unto the earth.
Unto the earth. Read on.
The beauty of Israel. And remember not his footstool in the day of his anger.
Give me that in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 16, I think, where it talks about under the sun. And I saw under the sun the place. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it? Is that it? Okay. Read that. Now let's see where heaven and hell is. Let's see where judgment takes place there. Read what you got.
The book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 16. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there.
Minute. He saw under the sun. What's under the sun? The earth is under the sun. The nations are under the sun. The animals, the beasts, all of that is under the sun. He saw under the sun what?
The place of judgment.
He saw under the sun the place of judgment. Read on.
That wickedness was there.
Now, when you receive the judgment, Whether it be because the good works or because of sin, when you receive the judgment, you receive either the blessings for living righteously, or you receive the judgment as in the curses for living wickedly. He said that he saw under the sun the place of judgment. That wickedness was there, read on.
And the place of righteousness.
Heaven and hell is right here on the earth, contrary to popular belief. Contrary to what Pastor Pedophile has taught you. Heaven and hell is right here on the earth. Heaven and hell is conditions on the earth, according to the Bible. Read on.
That iniquity was there.
Is that it?
Okay.
All right, do me a favor. What's that scripture? Give me Revelation chapter 5, verse 10. That the Most High has made us a nation of kings and priests, so we can see where we're going to reign at. Where will heaven be? Are we going to float up in the clouds? Are we going to be up there in outer space? Where will we reign at as a nation of kings and priests? You can't get more New Testament than the book of Revelation. You got it?
Okay.
Read what you got.
The book of Revelation, chapter 5, verse 10. And has made us unto our God kings and priests. And we...
So the us, that's talking about the Israelites. We have been made kings and priests unto the Most High. Read on.
And we shall reign on the earth.
And we will reign where?
On the earth.
We're going to reign up there in the clouds.
We shall reign on the earth.
Up there in outer space amongst the stars and the moon and other planets.
We shall reign on the earth.
Heaven and hell is on the earth, and the New Jerusalem will be on the earth. It'll come out of, it'll be on the earth. We're going to reign on the earth. Go back to Isaiah chapter 14, starting the 13th chapter. We've got to deal with this Lucifer. We've got to see who Lucifer is. We've got to check that out. You there? Okay. Go ahead and read what you got.
Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God.
So the so-called white man is the one saying he's going to ascend into heaven, and then he will exalt his throne above the stars of God. Read on.
I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation.
The so-called white man says he's going to sit up on the what?
Upon the mount of the congregation.
Now we have got to understand that when the scriptures say mount or mountain, it is talking about a government, a rulership. The mount of the congregation. Where did the kings and priests come out of in Israel? The kings and priests came out of the tribe of Judah, the bloodline of King David. And the priests came out of Levi, the bloodline of Aaron. He said he's going to sit up on the mount. The government where the rulers come out of the congregation. The congregation is the 12 tribes of Israel. Read on.
In the sides of the north.
Come on, man. In the sides of the what?
Of the north.
North. In the sides of the what?
In the sides of the north.
This so-called white man has sat on the mount of the congregation right here in North America. Why has your Christian pastor never showed you this? Because he's also your enemy. He's an enemy to blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians because he won't identify the psychological mind rape and the psychological warfare that's been perpetrated against our people. He's going to sit on the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Remember, this says, "O Lucifer," in verse 12. Read on.
Verse 14, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds.
And we know who did that. I don't know what year it was that the Wright brothers came up with the plane, but go ahead, read on.
I will be like the Most High.
See, the only one who's supposed to be above the mount of the congregation is Christ our King and the Most High. The Most High is the one who sits upon the mount of the congregation. He gives us the command on how we should live and how we should rule and reign over the other nations. So-called white man says, I'm going to enslave them and I will be like the Most High because I will sit on them. Read on.
Verse 15, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell.
So they going in the chains, whether you like it or not. They're going to get down in this dirt. Read on.
To the sides of the pit.
Read on.
Verse 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee.
Now we got to remember verse 12. Verse 12 says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? We got to remember verse 12. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, read on.
Is this the man?
Is this the what?
Is this the man?
But I thought Lucifer was a mighty angel who was made so perfect and beautiful. Is this the what?
Is this the man?
Lucifer is a what?
Man.
Is this the what?
Is this the man?
How come you never heard this in church? It's because your Christian pastors are filthy, disgusting liars. Is this the man, read on,
that made the earth to tremble,
that made the earth to tremble, read on,
that did shake kingdoms,
that did shake kingdoms? Because everywhere this so-called white man goes, he goes into these countries and he steals the country's resources. He steals everything from the country. He rape, robs, and murders. He's shaking kingdoms right now to this day. Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, the Gulf War, all the nonsense he got going on. Read on.
Verse 17, that made the world as a wilderness.
And when that thermonuclear destruction hits, you better believe the world is going to be like a wilderness. Read on.
And destroyed the cities thereof.
Read.
That opened not the house of his prisoners.
That opened not the house of his prisoners. Black man, Latino man, Native Indian man, you can relate to that for sure. How many of you are sitting in prison right now innocently? Read on.
Verse 18, all the kings of the nations, even all of them, he in glory, every one in his own house.
Read on.
Verse 19.
Get to my favorite part in a little bit. Read on.
But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch.
Like a what?
An abominable branch.
Just like in Romans, some vessels are made to honor and some vessels are made to dishonor. This is the abominable branch. Read on.
And as the raiment of those that are slain.
Read.
Thrust through with a sword.
Thrust through with the sword. Read on.
That go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet.
That's right. Read on.
Verse 20, thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people.
Read on.
The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned.
And we thank the Most High for that. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Now read my favorite. Read verse 21. That's what we was trying to get to.
Verse 21, prepare slaughter.
Prepare what?
Slaughter.
Prepare what?
Prepare slaughter.
We thank the Most High for that. Read on.
For his children.
This is for the so-called white man who says, I wasn't there. I didn't enslave you. I wasn't there. The scriptures say prepare slaughter for his children. Read on.
For the iniquity of their fathers.
And you can talk that nonsense if you want to. They still perpetrating it. Our children are still dying with honey buns in their hand. They still saying they're going to build a wall to keep the so-called Mexican off the land they stole from him. They still haven't given the Native Indians their land. They still locking up, what are we, 13% of the population? More than 85% of the prison population? I wasn't there, but you still reaping the benefits of a system set up that you went from it, and that our people pay terrible prices for it, so that you can live a lavish lifestyle. Prepare slaughter for his children, read on.
That they do not rise.
So they'll never rise again, read on.
Nor possess the land.
That they'll never steal land from anyone else again, read on.
Nor fill the face of the world with cities.
Why would you want them to fill the face of the world with cities anymore? They're running around teaching you that you can be born a man, but just because the wind blows a certain way, now you can profess yourself to be a woman. Why would you want them to fill the world with cities again? They have sex with animals. They fill the internet up with porn. Why would you want him to fill the world with cities again? He is the devil and the deceiver that the Bible speaks of. And if you are not identifying the enemies of blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, guess what? You are an enemy to blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians. We're going to learn how to effectively wage war by identifying who our enemies are. Not that you should go and kill anyone or hurt anyone physically. The scriptures say, not by strength nor by might, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. His spirit. We got to come back to who we are as royalty, and we got to wage war by separating from these devils and let them destroy themselves. He's a virus anyways. He's a cancer anyways. If left alone, he'll kill himself if no one else is on the earth. Go to Job chapter 1, verse 6. We're going to get into it. If you have any questions, type them in online. If you will, be looking at your phone to see if you can catch any questions, get my attention so I can try to answer them. We got to break this down all the way to pot, man, where our people got a real understanding of what's going on, man. This psychological warfare that's been waged against our people, we waking up. It's high time we wake up. You got that? So we want to get some more on the nature of the Most High and the relationship between the Most High and Satan. All right? So we're going to go to Job chapter 1, verse 6, and we're going to check that out. Read what you got.
The book of Job, chapter 1, verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord.
So they came to present themselves before the Lord. Read on.
And Satan came also among them.
And Satan, the adversary, came also among them. Read on.
Verse 7. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou?
Now understand this right here. This is a very authoritative question. He's asking him, where are you coming from? Where have you been? Read on.
Then Satan answered the Lord.
Then Satan did what?
Answered the Lord.
Now, if you are at odds with someone and they ask you where you're coming from, are you going to answer them? Probably not. If you do answer them, what the hell, what does it matter? Why you want to know where I'm coming from? Let's see what Satan says when the Most High asks him where you're coming from. Read on.
And said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it.
Hold that and give me 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. We coming right back there. So Satan didn't put a stutter in his step. Satan is subordinate to the Most High. He answered him when he asked him, where are you coming from? What you're getting is a recollection or an account of a council. No different than how we have councils right here. Our generals pull us together, and guess what? He's given us orders and commands, our captains and officers over us, and they say, where have you been and what have you been doing? And we give an answer, Salaki Adawan, I've been doing this and I've been doing that. This is what Satan is doing. He's giving an account for what he has been doing according to the commandment he's been given by the Most High God. Read what you got. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8.
Okay, the book of 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Be sober.
Don't be high on weed. Be what?
Be sober.
Read on.
Be vigilant.
Be watchful. Pay attention to what's going on. Read on.
Because your adversary.
Because your what?
Your adversary.
No, your friend.
Your adversary.
Because your adversary, read on.
The devil.
We know that the so-called white man is in the spirit of Satan. He is our adversary. And if these other fake Israelite camps won't say it, you're going to hear it right here in the I.S.U.P.K. The so-called white man is the devil that the Bible speaks of, and he is your enemy. The scripture said, read it from the top.
Okay. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Be sober.
Read on.
Be vigilant.
Pay attention. Be watchful. Read on.
Because your adversary, the devil,
Read on.
as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour.
Peter understood this because he's very aware of what Satan's role is. Go back to Job chapter 1. We're going to start in verse 8 this time. He's very aware of what Satan's role is and what he's supposed to be doing on the earth. He goes about, he said he was going to and fro up and down on the earth, and we know what he's doing, like a roaring lion, walking about seeking whom he may devour. Because when these trials and these tests come upon you, you either are getting raised up to receive a blessing, or a judgment is upon you to be destroyed. Read verse 8.
Okay, the book of Job, chapter 1, verse 8. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job?
Read on.
That there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil.
And escheweth evil. So he's saying, so Satan gave him an answer as to what he'd been doing. And the Most High said, yeah, but have you considered my servant Job? You say you've been walking up and down to and fro in the earth. Have you considered my servant Job, who is perfect and upright man? Your job is to go and test people and try people. That's what I sent you in the earth to do. Have you saw about Job? Read on.
Verse 9. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, doth Job fear God for naught?
Does Job fear you for no reason? Read on.
Verse 10. Hast not thou made an hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side?
So you got him protected. Read on.
Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land.
So you blessed him, you protect him. I can't touch him because you have a hedge around it. You're protecting him. Read on.
Verse 11. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face.
So this is Satan telling the Most High God, if you take that hedge off of him, I will go and do my job perfect and wonderfully on Job. I will make sure that Job curses you to your face. Read on.
Verse 12. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power.
Now listen, the Lord is giving him permission. You see, they love to say that the men in the I.S.U.P.K. walk around arrogantly and so proud. No, it is what it is. Whether we live or whether we die, it's all in the hands of the Most High. Whatever his judgment is, we with it. We're willing to lay down our life if necessary, if that's what it takes. What you read right here is the Most High giving Satan permission to go and test and try Job. Read verse 12 again from the top.
Verse 12. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power.
Read on.
Only upon himself put not forth thine hand.
So you can touch everything that he owns and that he has, but don't kill him. Read on.
So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord.
And Satan did not leave the presence of the Lord to go do his own thing. Satan left the presence of the Lord to follow orders. So what am I saying? What am I saying to the individual who has grown up in church and heard all of these lies about Satan and the Most High? What I'm telling you is that Satan is a subordinate to the Most High. There's angels on the left-hand side and there's angels on the right-hand side. All of them are following orders. Now, when we say you should fear God, you say, well, the Christians say, well, fear, it just means you should respect God. It just means you should respect him. That's all fear means. No, you should fear God. The same, anywhere there's a law, there's a penalty for not keeping the commandment. If you're driving along and you know you're going higher than the speed limit and you see a police officer up there sitting in his car waiting, you slow down. Why? Out of fear of getting a ticket. Why? Because you know you are breaking the law. Well, the Most High God has laws. And when you break the law, he has a terrible price for you to pay. The Most High God will require your life for breaking his law. How much more should you fear the Most High God? You know what we're going to give me? Isaiah chapter 45, we're going to start at verse 7. See, the problem is, you don't understand who the author and who the creator of evil is. For those of us who've been in the truth, this is nothing new. But those waking up and coming out of Christianity, this is a heavy point for them to get. This is something that's real hard for them to get past. Now, you've never heard these things because you don't read the Bible. You get up in church, they do some kind of sing and dance routine, and they completely mislead you for an hour and a half to 2 hours. We're going to read the Bible and see if what you've been taught in Christianity matches up with this Bible. Read what you got.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil.
And do what?
And create evil.
The Most High does what?
Create evil.
You sure that ain't Satan?
I make peace and create evil.
Read on.
I, the Lord, do all these things.
Who do all of these things?
I, the Lord, do all these things.
The Most High is telling you that he is the one who creates peace and he creates evil. It doesn't say I, Satan, do all of these things. It doesn't say I, the devil, do all of these things. It says I, the Lord, do all of these things. Give me Isaiah 54, verse 16. You've got to understand that the Most High has angels on the right-hand side for constructive things, for delivering understanding. And he has those angels, those messengers on the left-hand side that you call demon spirits, is what you call them. Read what you got.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. So a smith is someone who creates things, a blacksmith, all other kind of smiths, they make things. Read on. And that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. So he's bringing his tools, and when he works, he creates something. Read on. And I have created the waster to destroy. He's created the waster to destroy. The Most High God controls both sides of this thing, and when you understand that, you should be filled with great fear. Because then what logic and practical reasoning should say is the Most High is controlling both sides. If I want to be right, let me get on what the Most High tells me I need to be on. If he's controlling these devils and he's controlling these angels, give me 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 6. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 6. We got to get into this because the lies that we've been told as a people is what keep us from effectively waging war the way that we need to. We think we can be as wicked as we want to be, breaking God's laws, statutes, and commandments, and that we're still supposed to have a hedge of protection around us. We're still supposed to be blessed, even though we're living as wicked as we want to live. Read what you got. The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 2, verse 6. The Lord killeth. The Lord does what? Killeth. The Lord killeth. Read on. And maketh alive. Read on. He bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. Deuteronomy 32, verse 39.
The Most High is the one that does the killing. He takes all the credit for all the destruction that is going on the face of this planet Earth. Now, once you start to wrap your mind around this and understand this, the thing that should click in your head is, why don't I get in right standing with the Most High God and do what He has told me to do? Especially if you're Black, Latino, and Native Indian, because He has called you to royalty on the earth. He has called you to reign on the earth. You can't be what everyone else is. It's not right for royalty to be like the rest of the dogs. It's not right for you to dress the way the rest of the heathens dress. It ain't right for you to eat the same kind of food slaves eat. You're royalty. And it's been outlined what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat because you're royalty. It's outlined what you should say and what you shouldn't say because you're royalty. Read what you got.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 39. See now that I, even I, am He, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive.
The Most High says He kills and He makes alive. Read on.
I wound and I heal.
So He'll put the cancer on you. He'll put the high blood pressure and the heart disease on you from eating shrimp, crab, lobster, and swine. Then you repent. He also will heal you. He'll take it off of you. You stop eating that stuff and start following His law, statutes, commandments. He'll heal you. Read on.
Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand.
Read that last part again.
Come on. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand.
Neither is there any that can deliver out of His hand. If you're going to wage spiritual warfare effectively, you had better know who's controlling both sides of this thing. The left and the right-hand side. Whatever the Most High decides to do, He decides to do, and there is none that can deliver out of His hand. Any more on that truth? Give me Psalm 78, verse 49. We're going to make it extremely plain and clear. Because the last time we weren't able to quite finish, whenever we were disobedient to the Most High God, that's what put us in the position we're in today to receive these terrible judgments on us. If we're going to wage war effectively, we've got to get in a mindset of obedience. Read what you got. 78:49, Psalm 78:49.
The book of Psalms, chapter 78, verse 49. He cast upon them the fierceness of His anger, wrath, and indignation, and trouble, by sending evil angels among them.
By sending what among them?
By sending evil angels among them.
The Most High is the one who sends the evil angels among you. Satan isn't controlling anything. Go back to 1 Samuel. You know where we're going, 16 and 14. Satan isn't controlling anything. He has to get permission where to go and where not to go, what he's allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do. The Most High says He casts upon them the fierceness of His anger by sending evil angels among them. The demon spirits, that depression you dealing with, the Most High did that. That narcissistic attitude and thought process you got going on, the Most High did that. There's those sociopathic spirit that's been put on you, the spirit of me, the Most High sent this evil angel among you. Read on. You got what I want? 1 Samuel 16:14. Read it.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16, verse 14. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul.
So the Spirit of the Lord is a righteous spirit, and it says departed from Saul, meaning it left Saul. Read on.
And an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him.
An evil spirit from who?
From the Lord.
Did what?
Troubled him.
The Most High is the one who sent the evil spirit to trouble Saul. The Most High is controlling both the left and the right-hand side. Give me 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 20. Let's get another example of what goes on in this council. We got any? You got your phone? If we got any questions, let me know. 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 20. We're going to take a look at another council that went on, the Most High sending these evil angels among you. Once you start to realize who's controlling both sides, it's easy for you to make the decision. I mean, logic and practical reasoning says, well, you know what? Let me keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, especially when you start really digging deep in this. Go ahead and read what you got. I'm going to check it. 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 20. If you got any questions, be sure to type them in. We're gonna get them answered.
The book of 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 20. And the Lord said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead?
So the Most High is having a council with His angels on the left hand and on the right hand. And He said, who's going to persuade Ahab that he go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? Read on.
And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner.
So they going back and forth. Some is saying, we can do this, we can try that. Read on.
Verse 21. And there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him.
There came what?
I will persuade him.
The Spirit said he will persuade him. Read on.
Verse 22, and the Lord said unto him, wherewith?
So the Lord said, wherewith, that's an old English word that means how. How are you going to persuade him? Read on.
And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets.
So the Most High said, so this Spirit said he's going to go forth and be a lying spirit in the mouth of Ahab's prophets. Read on.
And he said, thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also.
And the Most High said he gave him permission to do it. This is once again another counsel, and the Most High gave him permission to go and do what he does. Yeah, you'll be a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets. You will persuade him, go forth and do so. Read on.
Go forth and do so. Verse 23. Now therefore, behold, the Lord had put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets.
Who put a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets?
The Lord.
Read on. Is there more on that? Read on.
And the Lord has spoken evil concerning thee.
See, when the Most High God speaks evil concerning you, he's the one who sends the evil spirits. When the Most High God has had enough with you, he sends the demon spirits, and guess what? People die when the Lord visits them. If the Lord visits you and you have been keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, he'll make the judgment that you won't live anymore. If you're going to wage war spiritually effectively, identify who your enemies are. Get on the side of the Most High in Christ. Matter of fact, give me Leviticus, the 10th chapter, the strange fire. That's the one I want. You know what I'm talking about? Leviticus chapter 10, starting verse 1, the strange fire. Read that.
The book of Leviticus chapter 10, verse 1. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer and put fire therein.
They put what in?
And put fire therein.
Read on.
And put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord.
And they offered what before the Lord?
And offered strange fire before the Lord.
Read on.
Which he commanded them not.
So they offered a strange fire before the Lord that the Most High commanded them not to do. You see, Cain and Abel both had a sacrifice. One of them had the sacrifice that the Most High required of them, and the other one said, I'm going to give a sacrifice. I'm just going to give my own. I'm going to do my own thing. So in this case, these brothers, they went and they offered strange fire before the Lord that the Lord did not tell them to offer before him. The Lord wants you to follow his commandments to the T. Don't add to it and don't take away from it. Read on.
Verse 2. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them.
And what happened?
And they died before the Lord.
And fire came out from the Lord. Salaki. And fire came out from the Lord from them choosing to do their own thing, devoured them, and it killed them. If you want to wage war effectively, you've got to make sure that you're on the side of the Most High in Christ, walking up right before him, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. That's what our people don't understand, man. This is warfare. We got to thank the Most High for commanding General Yahanna and him holding steadfast and sticking with the I.S.U.P.K, because he raised us up to be able to wage war effectively. He didn't leave us in the dark. He made sure we know who our enemies are and what the Most High requires of us. He made sure that you know how to go out here and be a man, be a husband to your wife or wives. That's right, with an S. Be a husband to your wife or wives. Contrary to popular belief, you can have more than one wife. That's a whole other class. To be a father to our children, to be a brother to our brothers, to walk upright and be men. You see, these other camps, they running around saying that we can't identify who the devil is. We can't identify who Esau is because that may infringe upon us being able to do what we want to do on the radio or on TV. These people are sellouts and they're cowards. The reason you never found out who created evil is because your Christian pastor is a sellout and a coward. He doesn't understand the psychological warfare that's been perpetrated against our people. And if he does understand it and he do it, then he deserves the death and destruction coming to him. Go, where you at? What scripture you got over there, Trooper?
Right now, Leviticus 10, just finished verse 2.
Go back to Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, if you will. We've got to make sure we wake up and come out of this darkness, man. And understanding who we are and what's required of us is part of the battle. But we can't just be hearers of the word only. We got to get out here. We got to do what we commanded to do. Matter of fact, give me 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. If you will. We can't just be hearers of the word. Faith without works is dead. You can't sit up and say you believe, but you're not doing what you can to help build this nation. The scriptures say that we're supposed to come out of her. The scriptures tell us to join ourselves together, O nation not desired. We're not supposed to join ourselves together and just sit around and look at each other. We're supposed to join ourselves together, keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, and get in a rank in order that the Most High in Christ has set up. Read what you got.
The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10.
Salaki, I need 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. Salaki, if I told you 1 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. Read what you got.
I'm calling 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds.
Christianity is a stronghold. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're mighty through the Most High for pulling down a stronghold that is Christianity. Read on.
Verse 5. Casting down imaginations.
Casting down that imagination. Because if I tell you to close your eyes right now and picture Jesus, and a lot of your minds, what will pop in your mind is a so-called white man. A lot of your mind, a faggot named Cesar Borgia will pop into your head. We've got to cast down these strongholds and these wicked imaginations. His name is Yahweh. Read on.
And every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God.
So everything that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, we are against. We're waging war against. Saying that Latinos are not Israelites. We against that because that's a lie. You don't understand the scriptures. Saying that you can't have more than one wife, we against that because that's a lie. Saying that it's okay to practice these pagan customs and ideas, we're against that because that's a lie. We're against Christianity because Christianity doesn't match what the Bible says and teaches. Christianity doesn't go along with the Bible. Christianity has made its own. If you're a Christian, you hate yourself if you're a Black, Latino, or Native Indian. You've got to hate yourself because Christians are the ones who came and burnt crosses on your lung, cut the testicles off of your forefathers, raped your foremothers, hung your brothers and sisters from trees. If you're a Latino man and you were a Roman Catholic, you hate yourself and you hate your people. Christopher Columbus was a Christian. They cut the hands off of your children, raped your daughters, raped your women, killed your men. If you're a Native Indian and you're a Christian, you hate yourself. Being an American and being a Christian is the hatred of Blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians. And what Blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians have got to understand is that if you're going to wage war effectively, you've got to separate and drop this idea of Christianity and of being an American, and you've got to come back to your own people to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments so that we can get delivered out of here. What is it any more on that truth? Read some more.
And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
So every thought that goes against the Most High in Christ, you got to bring to obedience. It said bring into captivity every thought to Christ. Give me Luke chapter 19, verse 27 real quick, so we can see some more on the nature of Christ. See, the scriptures tell us that the Most High is a man of war. Let's get some more understanding on the nature of Christ. You got that? Read what you got.
Verse 7.
19, verse 27.
The book of Luke chapter 19, verse 27. But those, mine enemies.
This is red letters we read. This is Christ speaking. But those mine enemies, read on.
Which would not that I should reign over them.
You don't want Christ to reign over you. You don't want to keep the rules and what Christ has outlined you should and you shouldn't be doing. Read on.
Bring hither and slay them before me.
Do what?
Bring hither and slay them before me.
The scriptures say, bring hither and slay them before me. If you don't want to pull your thoughts into the captivity of Christ, meaning that Christ said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Everybody who doesn't want him to reign over him, Christ is going to tell us to bring them hither and slay them before him. If you're going to wage spiritual warfare effectively, you've got to bring yourself into obedience. Was it any more on that 2 Corinthians you was reading, true? Salaki, I should have told you to hold that. No sweat. If you got any questions, make sure you type it in online. Following up this class, we're going to have the opening Sabbath service. The mighty Officer Manatazak and Officer Malakwaf will be teaching that. And the closing Sabbath class will be taught by Officer Ashiyar Bakar, another wonderful, excellent teacher, at around 7:30 tomorrow. So make sure that you tune in on this channel. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can be notified whenever classes get ready to start. It's going to be a wonderful class, and everything that they give you is good because they're reading the word of the Most High in Christ. You there? You got some more on that? No sweat. You can drop that and go to Ephesians. You can drop that and go to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. That's what we want. If you got any questions, make sure you type them in online. You there? Okay. Go ahead and read it.
The book of Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Read on.
Verse 11. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
Put on the what?
Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
Scripture say, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. That's part of warfare as well. You got to understand what your enemy is using against you. Christianity is a part of the wiles of the devil. Read on.
Verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood.
We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Nobody in the I.S.U.P.K. has told anyone to go out and start killing other nations just because they're in the other nations. We're not saying kill so-called white people just because they're so-called white people. Read on.
But against principalities,
read,
against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world.
Read on.
Against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Christianity is spiritual wickedness in high places. Most of your so-called presidents, they profess to be Christians. Your governors, your mayors, your sheriffs, they all profess to be Christians. That's spiritual wickedness in high places. We've got to put on the whole armor of God. Now, how are you going to keep commandments if you don't even know what the commandments are? If in your Christian church they're not teaching you what the commandments are, how could you keep them? You can't. They're telling you in a Christian church that the law is done away with, and it's okay for you to be lawless and do whatever you want to do. How could you know again what the wiles of the devil are if they're not identifying who the devil is and who your enemy is? Is it any more than that true? Oh, go ahead, read.
Verse 13. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand.
And having done what?
And having done all to stand.
Salah, let me see what y'all talking about that. Officer Yashamar with the I.S.U.P.K. We started off at 125th 1 West.